So that is what I'm going to cover, but I'm bearing in mind that we have diplomat wives here as well. One of the things that we really felt when we look at the experience of moving overseas is that you're managing yourself through change. So what we're really passionate about is that you can articulate the skills, the knowledge, the attitudes you need when you move to a new country, and then you can build on that and actually consciously choose to use them again. So next posting, you are much more capable and more prepared and more planned to move again. You know, one of the things that we say when, you know, Deanne is so right about being an expat on all sorts of levels, and people say at times, well, what's so big about change? And certainly if you haven't been through it, it's a very hard thing to understand. So we like to describe change in terms of a formula, and the formula that we like to use is Einstein's formula, E equals mc squared, and basically he got it wrong. You know, he's a very clever man, but he was a bit off. So basically, E equals mc squared for us is expat equals managing change, obviously on every area of your life. And when we have a look at change, in a way, you could say, yeah, but when I move to a new place, of course the food's different. All right, okay, of course I have to rebuild my activities, of course I have to do this. Yes, in the beginning I didn't know where the school was, yes, I didn't know anybody. Now that's all fine in and of itself, but you build them one after another, and you do it 24/7, you have got massive change. Really, when you have a look at this, we think there are 3 key skills that you're dealing with. One of them is change management. Absolutely change management skills, and I tell you it is because I train change management on a day-to-day basis, and I cannot give people the experience of managing change in the training that we all have. What I can do is get them to imagine it and then link, but we all have change experience. The second skill that we really look at is project management. I mean, we're amazing project managers. We move entire houses, entire families from one place to another, and they keep going. They don't even kind of notice. We seamlessly move people and transplant them, or even just ourselves. So project management is a really key competency. And the third one, which is just so important in a company, is leadership. We lead ourselves and we lead our families through change. To have a look at strategies, what we first want to do is have a look at a context. And we decided to use this man as our context, Shackleton. He, in 1914, decided to go to the Antarctic and cross the Antarctic. At that time in the UK, or at that time actually in the world, this was space travel. This was so interesting and so exciting that actually he even had the media rights sold before he went on expedition. He had schools raising money for the dogs for the sleighs. I mean, there was so much interest in what they considered was space travel. Why we looked at Shackleton is we want this empowering context where people can find themselves as they look to move. And what we say is that people who move are the modern day explorers. And when you get an empowering context that is complex, like a modern day explorer, it enables you to go through the good and the bad. It's not a simplistic context, and it holds you up and it gives you a reason why things are going the way they are. You can find yourself in it. So we much prefer to do that and talk through our book about his story and his experience rather than talk from our own experiences, because they're not enough and they're not rich enough. I mean, I don't know, Deanne's is pretty rich experience, but you know, we still feel like we want something more archetypal to look at. So we looked at Shackleton, and Shackleton really had to change identities as he went along. He started as an explorer, but he ended up to be the boss. They only called him the boss when he went on expedition, and so his identity very much changed from explorer out there to a leader of men. And that to him was a huge shift, and in his diaries you can see that, one that he took very seriously. So from the very, very beginning, Shackleton set very realistic expectations that it was not going to be easy, it was dangerous, it was hard work. And how he chose his people was very interesting, because there were people that he chose that on the face of it you would say, do not choose these people. The meteorologist, somebody who's really in charge of the weather. This is important when you're in the Antarctic. Well, he had actually been an archaeologist in the Sudan before that. So on the face of it, you would say, well, the knowledge isn't there, but he wasn't looking for the knowledge. This man said, I'll go get the knowledge. He was looking for attitude. So he said, you've got 1.5 years to prepare, go get the knowledge. And this man was a really good member of the team. But basically, it was a very slow, painful realization that this ship was not going to get them out of there. And for months they thought, we just wait, we hang on, which in some ways is what we can do in our relocation. We think, we'll hang on, we'll just hold our breath and we'll wait until the ice melts and we can go home. But in reality, if your boat sinks, that's not an option. You're there 24/7 and you have to live it. So reality and dealing with the reality was something that they really had to look at on a day-to-day basis, and there were lots of strategies they had to make sure they could manage themselves through change. One of their strategies was they never ever talked about what if. It was not allowed as a conversation. And I think that's a really interesting one, because we can tell the difference when we meet internationals who are moving, who are going to stay. And we can tell by the tone and the determination for the long-term plan that it's going to work out. When I hear companies say to me, well, we're hiring someone and they're going to give it 1 year, I think, oh. Because giving it 1 year means from the very beginning, for an entire year, you are holding your breath and your behaviors might be different than if you were saying, I'm here for good. Yeah? Now, some of us don't know how long we're going to stay somewhere. We don't know how long we're going to stay somewhere. We think we're going for a little bit and we stay for a long time. And that's okay. But if you know you're staying, but you're in the plan B, I can always go home, it changes the way you behave. Yeah? So that was one of the things they did. Be realistic, look for the long term. Expect one thing, we get another, and we can make a decision about it. And I've heard internationals say, I've come to decide, and I've decided unconsciously that this can't be home. And I didn't realize it, but I've decided I can never really fit in here. They don't realize that that is a decision they've made consciously. It's quite deep down inside, but it changes their behavior and it changes their interpretation of what they're seeing. So one of our key points is assumptions. Check your assumptions. Check what you think is going on, especially the assumptions you make early on in change, because they're usually not the best time to make assumptions. We can't help it. And then one of our other strategies that we would suggest is to look at your life and analyze your life as a series of maps. So it's really something that Deanne and I developed together as an idea, is that we know we've got a geographical map. I mean, Shackleton, he had a map. He knew that he wasn't at Antarctic. He knew how close he was, and he knew as he went on the ship and floated with the ice exactly where he was spatially at all times. And we, as we go through life, we know absolutely where we are in terms of home. Home is usually our anchor, and that's why we find it very difficult when we have to move home, even if it's in the same town, because we have to reorient where the school is, where the shops are, where our friends are, from home. So having to rearrange geographically your map is something we are prepared for. What we're not prepared for is to have to rearrange and rebuild our activity map. And our activity map is really important. In fact, we would say that it's one of the key maps that you want to focus on early on, because the killer is emptiness in life. So once you've set up your home and then there's nothing to do, that is really a killer. That's when we start going down in the, if you like, the culture shock curve, because we have no focus, and we might feel like we have no purpose, and we might feel like we have no contribution. Our project management, so to speak, has finished. We're here. So your activity map is really important to rebuild. And there might be activities that on the face of it feel a bit fluffy. Certainly for me, you know, meeting up with my girlfriends and having a drink, it sounds a bit fluffy. But when you look at the benefits of feeling connected, of being known, of being recognized, of being able to laugh, of hearing other stories, of feeling connection, these are really vital things that on the surface, when I'm sitting in the pub having a glass of wine with Deanne, you may not see it. But there's big stuff going on underneath that are very important to me. And so rebuilding your activity map is key. And then the third map is a biggie too. This is the one that Shackleton's crew really had to deal with, and this is your identity map. So you really want to rebuild your identity, because when you move, it could be that you become labeled as the new person, their wife. You could be, in all sorts of ways, become just a label and not who you are. And identity is made up of quite a few complex things, but two of them are who you see yourself to be and who others reflect back to you you are. And if others are reflecting back to you that you are only a label, it's very hard to keep the complexity in you of who you are. So when we move, we think it's really important to look at your identity map and to look at how you can introduce yourself and explain yourself in a way that's more complex.